Okay, so when I say calcium, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Strong bones, right? Maybe one of those old got milk ads. And look, you're not wrong, but that's kind of like saying a CEO's only job is to have a corner office. There is so much more going on behind the scenes, and today we are diving deep into calcium's secret life.
Right. Get a load of this. An absolutely massive 99% of all the calcium in your body is locked up in your bones and teeth, basically acting as the scaffolding. But it's that teeny tiny 1%, the stuff floating around in your blood and soft tissues, that's actually running the whole show, every single second of every single day.
So we need to stop thinking about calcium as just a building block, like a brick. Let's give it a promotion. From now on, think of it as the manager mineral. It's this incredible biological multitasker that's making all the critical split-second decisions that are literally keeping you alive. This is the calcium nobody talks about. And trust me, it's where things get really interesting.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll go beyond that milk mustache. Then we'll meet your body's secret manager. After that, we'll rethink where you're getting your calcium. Then we'll zoom out to the long-term picture, and finally land on the real takeaway from all this.
Okay, let's jump right into the most incredible part of this story, the actual life-or-death jobs that tiny 1% of calcium is doing for you as we speak.
This quote just nails it. It's the brutal, honest truth about our biology. Your body's number one, non-negotiable priority is surviving right now. And that 1% of calcium in your blood is absolutely critical for that survival. So what happens if you don't get enough of it from your food?
Well, your body pulls off an inside job. It performs a heist on itself. If your dietary calcium drops, a hormone gets released that literally starts dissolving your own bone tissue to release calcium back into the blood. Your bones aren't just a frame, they're a bank vault, and your body will absolutely make a withdrawal to pay for today's operating costs, even if it means having a weaker structure down the road.
So what are these operating costs that are so important? Well, for starters, every single thought you're having right now. Every time a nerve needs to fire off a signal, it's a sudden rush of calcium that acts as the on switch, telling that nerve to send its message. Without that switch, there is zero communication between your brain and your body. Nothing.
And that signal leads directly to movement. I mean everything, from you blinking your eyes to walking across the room. Calcium is literally the key that unlocks your muscles. It latches onto a little guard protein, pulls it out of the way, and lets your muscle fibers contract. And the most important muscle it does this for? Your heart. Calcium is what regulates that steady, life-sustaining rhythm, beat after beat.
Calcium is also your body's first responder. If you get a cut, calcium is a huge part of what saves you from bleeding out. In the medical world, it's actually got an official title, clotting factor 4. It's a critical link in the complex chain reaction that forms a clot and, turns what could be a disaster into just a scab.
Okay, so we've established it's incredibly important. We need it, but getting it from our food into our system isn't as simple as you'd think, because it turns out what you eat your calcium with might be just as important as the calcium itself.
It all comes down to this idea called bioavailability, which is just a fancy way of saying how much of a nutrient your body can actually use. So take spinach. We think of it as super healthy, and it is, but while it has a lot of calcium, it's also packed with these things called oxalates. And oxalates basically grab onto calcium and prevent you from absorbing it. So you only get about 5% of the calcium from spinach. It's crazy. Kale, on the other hand, is low in oxalates, so way more of its calcium is actually available for your body to use.
And it's not just kale. You've got options. Greens like bok choy are great. And get this, sardines, if you eat the little bones in them, can have even more usable calcium than a lot of dairy products. Fortified tofu is another fantastic plant-based source. The real lesson here isn't about finding one perfect food. It's about getting a good variety.
Now here's the next piece of the puzzle. You could eat the most perfect bioavailable calcium source on the planet, but it's totally useless without its partner in crime, vitamin D. The easiest way to think about it is this. Vitamin D is the doorman for your bloodstream. It stands at the wall of your intestines and decides who gets in. If vitamin D isn't there to open the door, calcium isn't getting in. End of story.
All right, let's talk about something that worries a lot of people. We hear that kidney stones are made of calcium, right? So it just seems to make sense that eating more calcium would give you kidney stones.
Well, prepare to have your mind blown, because for calcium you get from food, the exact opposite is true. It's wild. See, when you eat calcium-rich foods, that calcium binds with those oxalates, the same troublemakers we saw in spinach, while they're still in your gut. This power couple gets neutralized and then escorted out of your body before they ever have a chance to get to your kidneys and form stones. So, far from causing them, getting enough calcium in your diet can actually help protect you from kidney stones.
So now, let's zoom out and look at the long game. Because the way you handle calcium in your 20s and 30s has a massive impact on your health decades down the line.
I want you to think of your bones like a bank account for bone mass. From the day you're born until you're about 25, maybe 30, you're in the deposit phase. You're building up your bone density. But around 30, that deposit window slams shut. From then on, you're in the maintenance and withdrawal phase. You can't really add more. You can only try to slow down the losses. So having a big, healthy balance in that account by age 30 is absolutely crucial for later in life.
Okay, this brings us to the biggest, most mind-bending question of all. It's something called the calcium paradox. How on earth is it possible for a person to have bones that are weak and starving for calcium, and at the same time have arteries that are stiff and clogged up with calcium? It just doesn't seem to make any sense. The answer? The missing link in this whole story is another vitamin, vitamin K2. Think about it like this. Vitamin D is the doorman who lets calcium into the party. But vitamin K2 is the traffic controller who tells the calcium where to park. It activates proteins that literally grab calcium and stick it onto your bones. And it also activates other proteins that stop calcium from building up in soft places, like your arteries. Without K2, the calcium gets into your body, but it's just wandering around aimlessly, and it can end up in all the wrong places.
So, after all of that, what's the big idea? What are we supposed to do with this? The real takeaway is that we've been looking at calcium all wrong. It's not about one single nutrient, it's about the whole system working together.
So here's our new perspective. First off, calcium is so much more than a bone builder. It is a life-powering manager. Second, it's a total team player. It absolutely needs its teammates, vitamin D and vitamin K2, to do its job right. And finally, the best way to support this whole system is through a diverse, nutrient-rich diet. Real food first, always.
So, I'm going to leave you with this one last question. The next time you look at your plate, don't just think about building strong bones for the future. Ask yourself this: is this meal just building my bones for tomorrow? Or is it also powering my life right here, right now?